On November the 24th last year, Italian astronaut Samantha Cristoforetti blasted into orbit. Her destination? The International Space Station, and part of her mission, to be listening to a piece of one-show music I've composed, to be heard in its proper setting, in space. Today, we think of space as silent.
But for centuries, scientists and then musicians thought there was music punctuating the darkness.
I'm going to see if I can write a piece of music based on their theories. Pythagoras is famous as a revolutionary mathematician, but his musical discoveries were significant too.
If I play an open string, it sounds like this. If I place my finger exactly halfway along that string, I halve the length of the string and double the frequency of the pitch, creating a note an octave higher.
This relationship between the pitch of a musical note and the length of the string that produces it is known by musicians today as the harmonic series. But one of history's greatest mathematicians wasn't always right.
Pythagoras also thought that just as you can create notes from a string, so other objects could make music too. He believed the orbital movement of the planets around the sun also produced notes. And he called this sound the music of the spheres.
In the 17th century, German astronomer Johannes Kepler was still misguidedly trying to prove Pythagoras' theory. But what he wrote might just help me compose my piece.
Kepler really wanted the Pythagorean idea to be true. He invented his laws of motion, that the planets move on ellipses about the sun. When the planets get closer to the sun, they speed up. When they get further, they slow down. He found that if he took the speed when it's closest to the sun, its fastest speed, and the speed when it's furthest, its slowest speed, at least for the planet Saturn, those two speeds were close to a musical interval.
So it works for Saturn, but it fits all the other planets as well. Doesn't he claim that?
He did. They're not as precise as for Saturn, but he wouldn't have known that. His observations weren't as good as ours are now.
Kepler takes his ratios and translates them into two musical notes, a musical interval for each planet. So Mercury uses the notes C and E. Mars uses the notes F and C. And I've placed each of the planets in the order they appear in the solar system, their relative distance away from the sun. And I've taken the sound of Sputnik, the first man-made space sphere, to kickstart the beginning of my piece.
But I'm looking for a little extraterrestrial percussion to round things off.
I've been led to believe there's no sound in space.
That's not true, actually. There can be sound in space. I mean, I think it stems from this idea that space is a vacuum, but actually there are particles in space, there are atoms in space, just a very low density of them.
So have you got some sounds I could use in my composition?
What I suggest the thing we do is we pick on a particular type of object called a pulsar. They're actually the remnants of exploded stars, and these things spin. They rotate, and they beam light out from the magnetic poles. So we pick up these regular flashes and we can turn them into a sound with very regular beat. This is one that we recorded earlier.
So if I can clean up that kind of white noise in there, I've got a note.
Yeah.
And here is my piece, which in tribute to Pythagoras I've called the music of the spheres. It's a minimalist composition because each planet is represented by a pair of notes that correspond to Kepler's calculations, with a backing track of pulsars recorded at Jodrell Bank. It's the moment of truth. What will Samantha Cristoforetti think?
It's really hard to take in that music's being played up there on the space station.
Being up here in space, especially when I have time to hang out here in the cupola, it's an incredible experience. The music of the spheres is really the perfect soundtrack because it gives that sense of connection, of universality that I feel so strongly up here in space.
And this one-show composition is the first time a specially written piece of music has been played in space.